So we are super happy to have here with us gethan&myles, here live from Milan. We are at the end of an intense week of work in Milan when the PALIMPSEST project worked on the Lambro River landscape, on the interaction with the city, and on how this river that was forgotten, neglected, can be imagined in a new way, also with the support of creative and artistic activities. We are here with gethan&myles, who, with their project Acqua Lambro, are working with us in the PALIMPSEST pilot city of Milan. And we would like to ask them to start to ask this conversation, asking them why Milan? What was triggering your interest when you read the call? What did you find interest, and how does your concept relate to the environmental challenge we were depicting in the creative dialogue open call?
Hi, I'm Gethan, just so you have that. I think one of the things that drew us to Milan was just this feeling of the river that had become invisible. Maybe it was something that we had in our minds a little bit from our time living in London, where there are many, many rivers that have been paved over and have disappeared and exist only in the names of pubs or the name of a market street or something like that. And this idea of a river that is becoming or has become invisible was interesting.
Yeah, and also this loss of connection that increasingly we can have with the value and also the beauty, power, whatever we want to call it, of water and water courses. And obviously in a big industrial city like Milan, the role of water historically and in the present just seemed very interesting to explore.
And also, because we're based in Marseille, it was the pilot project that we could most easily access, most ecologically.
Thank you. I was thinking maybe we could. We forgot to introduce. Maybe you can introduce yourself, so we can do now a quick.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm Gethan.
And I'm Miles.
We're visual artists. We're Irish, but we've been based in Marseille in France for about 13 years.
So this week we had the chance to explore together the Lambro River, the Lambro landscape, and to understand a bit something about its relation with the city of Milan. What were your impressions? Is there any specific element related to how the river is lived, experienced, or managed that hit you?
So, first of all, it's actually amazing. There's a lot of feeling about, this could be better and this needs to be changed and this needs to be improved and we need to help people see this and understand that. But actually what there already is fantastic, and it has been very inspiring to see the work that many different kinds of groups, both government bodies and community groups and local experts, have been doing already in this city to raise up the status and the profile of the river.
So obviously there's a lot of work still to be done, but yeah, in the time we've spent on the river, and it's this thing of you have to spend time next to the water to see these things, and that's the problem. It's an invisible in the consciousness of lots of the Milanese. It just doesn't exist, or if it exists as a problem that they want to distance themselves from. But when you get up close, of course there are issues of pollution and many other things that we want to address with this project. But we were really struck by the wildlife that's already there, and it's the sound of it, just all these kind of sensory experiences. Its potential was great to kind of see that, and it, I think on the first day, one of the partners said, it's a proper river. It's not, you know, and that's what's even more crazy about its kind of, its disappearance in the collective consciousness is it has the qualities of a proper, powerful, you know, something that can attract people and make people, you know, imagine and want to be there. So it has lots of qualities, and also the local actors have been, you know, the work they're doing and will continue to do after we go. That's a very striking. We've been very lucky to meet lots of people. So that's been great.
Just like also the experience of the river is that it's chimeric, that there are all these different sort of possibilities of interacting with it. We went to one place where an artificial canal, the Martesana, crosses the Lambro River, and there you have something very kind of strange, very engineered, very architectural, but also philosophically quite interesting, of these two waters which cross but don't meet. And there's going to be a very interesting action with changes to the area surrounding the river in that particular spot. Then at another moment, we went to another part of the river where it was like, this is like the Amazon. We climbed up on the bank through these bushes. There was a massive snake came out of a hole just centimetres away from our feet. Green parakeets flew by, and it was really like you felt like you were in a completely different place.
And all of this is in the middle of Milan.
Thank you. So can you tell us a fun moment, an interesting moment in this compressed, let's say, process of discovery you had this week?
Well, it's all been fun. What can I say? Well, not at all stressful or intense. It's been incredibly, you said it was intense. And I think we're leaving this sort of week and going to need, you know, a long holiday. And that's because there's so much to see. There's so much going on. It's been brilliant. Yeah, what like kind of high moments, I guess. Yeah, almost getting killed by a snake. No, that probably wasn't. But just being absorbed in all this. You know, we've had a lot of debates around, so not just spending time by the river, but you know, talking about impacts and talking about the nature of co-creation and, you know, lots of kind of transversal issues which are going to be essential in if the project, if the artwork is to hold and have some kind of enduring effect. So I mean, it's really so many things. I think in a week I might have the answer, but I'm in the middle of the kind of the what would you say, the sinkhole or the whirlpool of the Lambro.
Okay. As Gethan was saying, we had the chance to meet people, Lambro community, local actors, local association, experts in different fields, and of course also the PALIMPSEST partners that were here for the residential workshop. What do you take home from these meetings? How do you think it will be interesting to include this different perspective along with the development of the process?
In terms of meeting the PALIMPSEST partners, one of the things that's been fascinating is seeing processes that we would often have engaged with very instinctively theorized. And that's not something that I would ever have done naturally. And if you had told me that we were going to do that and I was going to find it fascinating, I would have been like, yeah, no, I'm not sure about that. But for example, Shema's visual diagrams exploring the different creative processes and how we have structured our project, that was fascinating to see, because we often do projects like this that are kind of big, multi-layered projects with many different partners, an institutional partner and a cultural partner and a public engagement partner and an artistic output as well. And seeing a drawing of how we have made it so that they all interact was very interesting, because it's a point that we've got to by intuition and trial and error over about 20 years. And to see it sort of theorized was very, very interesting.
And I'd say, I mean, yeah, there are many thoughts. I think we've struggled, if it's fair to, we should be honest, we've struggled with, and I think everyone's struggled with, the short amount of time we have together. And yesterday we were lucky enough to go to the source of the Lambro, which is about an hour out of Milan. And I jotted down something about the limits of the theoretical, or because there is this thing of, you can own, I think possibly in residencies, often there's not enough theorizing. And it can be a bit chaotic, and the results can be, again, chaotic and unpredictable. But there is a point where you just have to let kind of the senses and serendipity lead you and lead the creative process. And so finding the time to have both the theoretical and these kind of more open, intuitive, whatever moments, we need both of them. Gethan was talking about the intuition, and I think both that and the theory are really the way to go. But it's been fascinating kind of seeing that need, and also how, and time. It's just always, and I think we all knew that time is the essential. You can't rush into a site and think you have the solution. So really interesting.
For example, one of the things of sort of experiential learning and theoretical learning, one of the days we were talking about prototyping with Maria, and it was very nice then. We had proposed a practical cyanotype workshop afterwards, which I knew was going to be in the day where we were talking about prototyping. So we were able to address some of the conversation that we'd had theoretically about prototyping in a very practical, experiential way. And I think it was nice as well at that point for other partners who might generally be less involved in intuitive experiential learning to be pushed to do something in that way, and to see how it related back to the theoretical stuff that they had just been talking about. So we did have a very nice exchange of experiential and theoretical practices.
Maybe, Gethan, you can tell us something more about these Hands on the River workshops. So this experience you were referring now.
Well, very simply, the cyanotype process is an old form of photography that we've worked with many times before. And it has a great immediacy and a real transformative quality. And the way we used it for that workshop was that the participants, the other partners in the consortium, made cyanotypes in pairs with a simple brief, and then we developed them directly in the river. We did it in an open green space in Park Lambro. And then they had a chance to make a second one. And so it was a chance to kind of just actually go and do something without talking about it too much, and learn about it by doing it.
Praxis. And just to continue this point, or labour the point, I think, I hope it's been an advert for kind of having artists at the table. It's something we, go on about. But the kind of meeting of a sort of a planner's or an architect's or an engineer's way of conceptualizing and creating with the way an artist might create. And of course there's a huge scope within what an artist does and what an engineer does, but overlapping those two styles is really, really interesting, because there's lots of common ground. It's not just like two confronting visions of the world, but actually, involving artists in that conversation and involving engineers or whatever in the creative conversation, it's I think produces the richest and most interesting work.
That said, co-creation takes time and energy. And this was like, I think a lot of us will be going away thinking, okay, what do we actually mean when we talk about co-creation? Co-creation with who, at what level? I think those are kind of discussions that will continue throughout this project.
Yes, thank you. So the co-creation experiments, of course, includes PALIMPSEST partner, and we would like also it to include people leaving the river every day. We met some of them this week. We met the Tenants Association. We met Environmental Association. What were your impression of this initial dialogue?
One of the first impressions is, again, just how much work is already happening, just how much expertise is already there in the local community in terms of what people want and need from the river and what the river can offer them. It was lovely to be shown around and have stuff explained to us by people who were really, truly expert in those things. And then the other thing that was really nice was the more spontaneous, more chaotic interactions that we had with different groups or different people who use the river. For example, when we were all in a big group at this place where the Martesana Channel crosses the Lambro, and
sorry, I'm choking. Really trying not to cough.
There is water there.
yeah,
Where?
down behind you.
Yeah, I broke the bottle of water.
Sorry.
So maybe we can
No, you did
restart
that.
That was
from
the
the
best bit, and it's ruined.
Yeah.
Typical.
Sorry, I take the advantage too. Do you wanna stool? Yeah.
Anyone else want some water?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get some. I'll pass that through.
Irene?
I'm fine.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. Better out than in.
I don't know. Maybe. Okay, I've some. Hang on a sec.
The sounds of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see in 2 years when you will drink this
Yeah.
Aqua Lambro.
So as well as the more structured moments we had with local experts, we also had more chaotic, more I can't remember the word. We also had sort of more chaotic, more spontaneous meetings with other people who use or inhabit the river. So, for example, when we were all standing in a big group at the river's edge at one point, listening to one of the experts talking, an old guy who was cycling his bike along the bike path stopped just to inform us all that when he was young, there used to be loads of animals there and that you didn't really see them anymore. So there is, as well as knowing that there are local experts who know loads about the space, we also know that there is a wish to exchange on this topic from just the average person in the area.
Okay. So often this week in the dialogue we ended up talking about care, about the concept of care, and about the need to support sort of caring practices in imagining a new relation with the Lambro River. So could you tell us what care means to your artistic practice? And if and how do you think it might be a component of your project?
So, yeah, care is fundamental, I think, and it's going to be really important in this project. how we use the word and what it means, again, it's a danger of words. So we kind of, through really interesting discussions with the partners, there was this idea of, is care, are we forcing our concerns on? And I think, and many other sort of what does care mean? For us, there's a real thing of connection, and care can be caring about, not caring for. So it's to have caring for is important in certain cases, but in this kind of seeing the invisible or the sort of invisibilized, it's having a connection to it. It's having it in your awareness, because again, and that's our first big step to make, is to make this river, which already in its slightly broken state has incredible qualities and attributes. We just need to bring it back into the awareness, and then you lead to, I think, what Gethan talks about, the idea of mutual care, which maybe she will.
Yeah, I think the idea of mutual care is really interesting in terms of many of our projects and many aspects of how we work, which is, very simply this idea of things looking after each other, that it's not this idea that we are in charge and we must look after this situation and it's not about that. And I think that sometimes characterizes people's relationship with the environment as well as many other aspects of their life. But it's more about looking at where can we find points where, in the case of this project, we nourish the river and in turn the river nourishes us. And how can we concretize those points of interaction?
Thank you. So about the project, now we can decide what we want to say, what we don't want to say, if we want to say something and then keep it for the end of the project or whatever we feel comfortable with. So up to you. But maybe I can ask you to tell us something about the project and its main core, let's say, or its interaction with the river, whatever you prefer.
So at this point in time, I guess that something that's at the core of this project is that idea of mutual nourishment. And then, okay, so what is the simplest way in which a river could nourish us? How can we concretize that in the most simple way? And that is maybe that we can drink the water, that becomes physically part of our being.
Which at the present time, to the vast majority of Milanese and to people who even work on or with around the water, that seems an insane idea. So it's opening up ideas of possibility or and impossibility, and so the project is called Acqua Lambro, and the idea is transforming this river that when people talk about it, if they talk about it at all, it's always a problem, and dirty is one of the first words that comes up. So it's planting the seed in people's minds and then actually going to the act of making this contaminated, ruined by humans site. Obviously, it's a much more complicated process than that, but making it pure, and then that leads on to the many questions of what is pure, what is good water, but in the essence, it's Acqua Lambro, the water that magically we can drink, and we as artists are going to make that impossible thing happen.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to say on that. So that's then in our time spent here as well, we've become much more aware of the efforts that are going on here to nourish the river, to give it more space, to help its ecosystems, to try and give it time to regenerate itself a little bit in the way it's allowed to move through the city. And so maybe this is like the idea that if we fully implant the idea that the river can really nourish us, then people will be more ready to ask themselves what they can do in turn to nourish the river in terms of, again, concrete actions.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just actually, I just wonder, like I was saying it kind of as a joke, but we, the artists, I don't know if that just sound like it's like, obviously it's not like artists are going to fix it where scientists have failed. So maybe whilst it was trying to be,
maybe the joke doesn't come across.
Yeah, it's not. So the idea is that the artists could we not have that bit? We, the artists, will fix it whilst it, because you just sound like a dickhead, or I do. Maybe so.
We can repeat this bit without this.
Yeah, avoid that bit. And maybe it's just the idea that sometimes it's the artist's job, or maybe always, to imagine some kind of utopic scenario or some kind of impossible. And we're interested in kind of operating here in that space, and that imagining can shift perceptions and shift practices and move us towards where we want to be.
So, what do you think we could add, Maria? I can. No? So, do you have? We can finish here. We have, if we want, another 10 minutes. Is there anything else you would like to add? Impressions, comments?
I think the whole project is brilliantly and wildly ambitious, not just in terms of the attempt to discover the impact of artistic interventions, but also in terms of the way it seeks to bring them about. It's been really exciting to work with such a varied team, really exciting and incredibly tiring, I would have to say, but to work with such a wide team with such different expertises, and the attempt to get all these different people's different internal compasses aligned and pointing in the same direction is great. It's a wildly ambitious thing to do, and it's exciting and tiring to be part of.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think at the beginning, Amalia was taken by us saying that it was a beautiful, insane idea, the whole palimpsest vision. And after 7 very intense days, I wouldn't change that assessment. But it's really necessary taking a kind of rigor to co-creative, community projects is fantastic. And, it's been a long time coming. It's really good to see that a scientific rigor applied to something which is really important to all of us.
To conclude, let me just thank gethan&myles for being with us this week. I think on behalf of the whole team, I can really say that it was a pleasure for us to have you here, and we are all looking forward continuing our collaboration.
Well, thanks to you guys too.
Liar.